What's up, y'all, and welcome back to Dad Needs to Talk. I'm your host Robert, and today I'm gonna be touching on a manga I recently read called Rainbow: The Seven from Block Two, Cell Six. So this manga, just to give like a little bit like a brief overview of it. Um, the manga is written by, let me get his name pulled up, George Abe, and the art is done by Masasumi Kakazaki. And this manga originally ran from November 2002 to January 2010 across 22 volumes at 235 chapters total. And there is also one 26 episode anime season that came out in 2010 that Studio Madhouse did. Now, as far as what I did and what I'm gonna be talking about, I'm gonna be mainly talking about the manga of this because I only watched maybe like a few minutes of the first episode of the anime or whatever. Maybe hopefully someday down the road I'll get to circle back to it. But I wanted to talk about this series while it was fresh on my mind. And before I get too deep into it or whatever, as I usually do, I try to give like a general overview up front, and then there might be some spoilers a little bit later. I'll try to make a note of that um, as much as possible. But before I dive too much into the series, I want to give a shout out to a mutual I have on Twitter who goes by That Frisian Fellow, because I don't know how I came across a tweet that they did January of 23 somehow, but I randomly came across this tweet and they were saying the best four seinen anime action drama adaptations from manga from 2006 onwards. They had Vinland Saga listed, which I have behind me, Kaiji, which is one I just read a couple years ago that I really enjoyed. Of course, the classic Parasite the Maxim, and then they had this series called Rainbow listed in there. So I immediately DM'd this person. I was like, "Yo, what is this Rainbow series that you have listed with Vinland Saga, Kaiji, and Parasite?" So we went back and forth, talked about it, whatever, and then I decided to give the manga a shot. And so I can confidently say, and of course this is Robert's opinion, but this is one of the best manga I've read in recent memory. And to give a little bit of context of what this story is about, so the story basically starts off following six minors that range from like 16 to 17, 18 years old. Um, they go by the nicknames Joe, Mario, Supon, Bearmoto, Heita, and Kiyabetsu. And so the story kind of starts off with these six minors going to juvenile, and they end up meeting this guy who goes by Anchan, but his name is Sakuragi, who has been there a little bit of time before them, whatever. He's a year older than all of them, so he's like already 18 at this point. And this story is basically a journey of hardship, but also life lessons and brotherhood that these seven form over the course of this story. Because from beginning to end, this series takes place over a decade, a 10-year time span. And it's kind of broken up into like, the story is kind of broken up into like parts. And so pretty much after each part, roughly, there's like some passage of time in between, but they kind of do like the big time jumps at the end of each part. And so I think like early on it was maybe like 6 months or a year or whatever, but as it went on, it was like, oh hey, it's been 2 years, oh hey, it's been 3 years, and then like the last one that they did, it was like 4, 5 years, whatever. And so this story just kind of follows these 7 characters and them meeting in this juvenile prison situation, and then them coming together, of course, not really getting along early on, but having coming to a understanding mainly through Sakuragi Anchan, which I call Big Bro, who kind of imparts with them some critical life lessons and things that kind of lay a foundation for how they operate as friends, as a unit throughout the course of this story. Because each of these young men, they're in here for a variety of reasons, some of which are misunderstandings because the time frame is that the story starts in 1955, and so it's a lot of hardships going on in Japan after the war, and just a lot of pain and suffering and different life situations to where some of the things that these young men end up involved in lead them to being in prison and stuff. And I definitely would say like this series from the get-go got me with this first double page spread that just says Crime One After the Rain, and it is the 6 boys being put on a regular civilian bus to take them to prison, and they're all handcuffed and chained together, and they're all having to wear a mask over their head. But it's just like a very striking image to start the manga. And so when I saw this image, I was like, oh, they might be cooking with something here. And so pretty much from here on, like, I would say, that a series has really gotten me when I do a Twitter thread of my journey throughout experiencing the series. And so the last couple of series that I've done that with was last year. I did it when I watched through the 99 episodes of Space Brothers, which was fantastic. And then the year before that, when I went through watching the 2 seasons of Kaiji, The Ultimate Survivor. And so, and the other one I did was also last year was Ikigami, The Ultimate Limit. So, the art in this is bold, it is beautiful, it is visceral in so many ways. And kind of speaking of Ikigami, this manga Rainbow it was kind of made within that same kind of like time frame, that era, and you could tell just from like how some of the art and the illustrations and stuff were done. But yeah, like I said, just the fact that I was so taken aback with this series that I went through and I did a thread on my journey over the course of like a month and a half, because I started reading this like very beginning of the year, and then I just finished it a few days ago, which I took a little bit of a break before I started this final part of the story, just because I'm very very busy, with work and life as a dad and all that stuff, whatever. So, and of course I also just kind of didn't want it to end. And so because of how the story had kind of built up and like a big climactic shift happened in the story, and I knew that I was at the last like 20 or so chapters, and then like that last time skip, it was like the big event happened, and then it was like 4 years later, and I was like, time out. I need to take a break right here. But yeah, so kind of circling back to the themes and stuff of this story, because like I said, each of these young men are imprisoned for a variety of different reasons. And one of the things that this story does so well is that over the course of the story, we get time with each of these main characters and even some of the periphery characters that they meet along the way, and they do a fantastic job of giving you background and context into who these seven boys are and what their individual lives were that led them to this moment where they're together and this in prison and stuff. And then even throughout that, they each find hopes and dreams that they use to kind of help propel them forward throughout this story. And we constantly get to circle back across this 235 chapters to check in with these characters, to where there are kind of like bigger problems that happen overarching, but each of them have their own kind of moments and mini story arcs that all kind of fold together and just constantly feed into these themes of brotherhood and camaraderie and things that just continue, like I said, just to continue to push things forward. Because no matter how insane or dire the different situations that they find themselves in, and some of like they get into some very life-threatening situations, but when any of them find out that one of them is having a problem, they are there to have each other's back, and they are also there to chastise each other and to keep each other honest, because each of them, like regular people, like all of us, are just human. And nobody is perfect. None of us are perfect. But I love how each of the characters, they hold each other accountable, and they'll call each other out, and they'll discuss with each other like, man, man, homie, he's been tripping. Man, he don't know that this girl's taking him for a ride or just using him. Or, man, this dude don't see that this situation he's in isn't looking good or whatever. And, of course, they are there to support each other and to pick each other up when each one falls, even when they want to be hard-headed or they don't want to see the reality of the situation that they're in. And sometimes it takes them sometimes getting physically hurt to a point, or even heartbroken, or a combination of different things, whatever, for them to get their eyes opened to the reality of the type of trouble that they might be in or whatever. But at the end, everybody is there to provide that support for each other. And I just love we get these constant group shots of everybody over the course of the series, over the course of the years, and it is just fantastic to say the least. And like I said, this story does have lots of hardship. There are some tough moments, there are some deaths that happen throughout this story, but no matter what, everybody perseveres, everybody comes together and continues to push forward. And a big moment that I loved that happens early on in the series is that they end up finding this tree when they were kind of outside of the prison, doing some community work, whatever that they had to do. They found this tree, and together they carved their dreams into this tree. And so that's kind of like the thrust of things behind the scenes, to where, like, example, like Joe wanted to be a singer. Some of them was like the short one, like he wanted to meet lots of girls. And it's kind of funny how like all of them end up chasing these dreams and potentially accomplishing these dreams or whatever, but maybe not in the way that they might think or that you might think, whatever. Um, but yeah, it is just a sight to behold. Like I said, just seeing these characters that were, like I said, 16, 17, 18 starting off, and then by the end of the series, they're in their late 20s and stuff. And just like looking back now, as I'm looking at some of these panels from like earlier in the series, whatever, of just like, man, these characters really did go through a lot. And there were so many jaw dropping moments that happened throughout to where I was like, yo, how did y'all pull this situation off? Or how did y'all make it through this? And like, it's just moments like this, and I keep pulling up the wrong page, sorry. Uh, but to where no matter if they're together or they're apart, they constantly have this theme of, he's just like family. Yeah, it's for my family. And so you have these moments to where sometimes multiple people in the group are working through or working towards a certain goal, but they just don't know that, oh, somebody else is also working towards this goal, this moment. And it's just a beautiful thing to witness. And I don't really need to even go into too much of specific story spoilers, like I said, because I truly believe that this is something that should be experienced by more people now. One thing I should have said up front too, whatever, is that as far as I'm aware, I don't think there is no currently official translation available of this series. Like I said, as far as I'm aware of, so I did have to go through certain sites to read it online. But like I said, there is a anime adaptation, which I think that covers about 50 chapters, which I think that's like the first part or first couple parts of the story. And so yeah, so you get like a chunk of the story, but not the whole thing. So like I said, just be aware of that. Apologies for not mentioning that up front. But yeah, but this was a fantastic journey. Like I said, I'm glad I kind of got to take my time and just kind of dive into it and just get to be with these characters and to just see the literal growth, like I said, them going from late teens to late 20s, but also them growing as individual people and seeing them try and fail and then triumph and overcome. And one of the dopest parts of the story is like there is one of the characters, Mario, who ends up inheriting a dream of somebody to become a boxer. And there's like some very awesome, very dope action panels and stuff of him boxing and him fighting and stuff like that. That, like I said, once again, it's just very striking and just like very dope to see happen and to reoccur over the course of the story. But yeah, but all in all, very dope read. Like I said, the main cast of characters and all of these side characters or characters that are connected through them, all just make this a fantastic ride. And like I said, you will have characters that you meet along the way that you're like, man, I do not like this character, or I hate them, or whatever. But sometimes, there are some characters that are just disgusting filth, and they get what they deserve. Which you're like, yes, they got their comeuppance. It was tough for them to finally get taken down, but hey, we did it. But there is also some characters to where you're like, I don't know if I really like this character, but they end up kind of coming around in the end. And I will say that, of course, I like the story isn't 100% perfect. There is like a kind of like a smaller story arc that happens like in like the final phase of the story that I was kind of like, I'm not sure about or whatever. Like there were definitely some parts of it that was awesome because it was kind of like a going back to the beginning and kind of seeing things from somebody else's perspective, so to speak. Uh, that was very dope to witness and experience. But there are some other characters that kind of got introduced like late in the game to where I was kind of like, don't know, kind of like them towards the end. And but all in all, I would say things were more, definitely way more positive than negatives. Because honestly, out of the whole 235 chapters, that one little portion at like in like the very final stretch was probably like the only like real blemish that I feel like of the series. But I feel like up to that point it had been almost flawless in the execution because like I said, just like the fact that every character of the main seven, we get fleshed out backstory of their upbringing. We get to see I think we get to see most of everybody's families, or at least learn what their family situation was, and then see that kind of like revisited over and over throughout the story. But yeah, so Rainbow, the 7 from Block 2, Cell 6, fantastic, superb. Like I said, right now sitting up pretty high of like one of like my recent all-time favorite series to read, and I honestly look forward to continuing to do this with more series, especially getting fantastic series like this where like 230 chapters is not that long compared to some other series or whatever. And so there's definitely a lot of other series that are kind of like on my radar that I plan to read through and stuff like that. And I'm definitely down for recommendations and stuff. If and I'm pretty open to majority of genres. I'm the only one. I'm not too big into like spooky and horror type of stuff. Um, but for the most part, I love my thrillers and dramas. I like some sports series. I like, of course, action. Been getting more into slice of life and romance stuff. So, hey, feel free to recommend me some series. Like I said, potentially, preferably like I'm looking for some finished series so that I kind of like plan out, from like start to end to enjoy a series. So, but yeah. So shout out to Rainbow, and like I said, just seeing these characters come back to this tree with their hopes and dreams on it was amazing. But yeah, so I think I'm going to end it off there. 'Cause like I said, I really don't feel the need too much to dive into spoilers, which you know what, I'll touch on a little bit. So if you've enjoyed this, thank you for watching. But I'm gonna take a few minutes to kind of dive into maybe like a few spoiler things for maybe like a couple of minutes. So spoilers now for like I said, a couple of minutes. So I did not expect, once again, spoilers. Early on, well, not too early, whatever. He was there for a good chunk of time, but seeing Sakuragi, aka Big Bro, go out and die at the point when he did. But like I said, like the series is so good that I was shocked, but of course everything makes sense within the context of this world. And so that was definitely like very gut punching. But I love how the characters take his lessons and things that he taught them, his will, and they carried it forward as like a binding agent to keep them all together, to keep them all grounded whenever somebody started to kind of like stray afar or start to do something crazy. It kind of comes back to An-chan's ideals and how to live and stuff. And that's why I kind of liked how this final part started of the story, to where we kind of ended off with that crazy situation with Mario and stuff in the fire of the warehouse, like that whole crazy big situation. And then we get the 4 year time skip, but then the final part starts off with a flashback to Sakuragi and more of his background, and him coming into prison, and him having his own big bro that kind of showed him the way, so to speak, but he was kind of nefarious and had kind of other motives or whatever, which that's why I kind of was like, I don't know how I feel about this other dude or whatever, but it was kind of interesting to see that this character who we thought was the big brother to the six also had somebody that he looked up to in the beginning, and kind of took the fall for and went to prison for, but how it all kind of looped back together. And I loved how we got to see the other six coming into the prison from Sakuragi's viewpoint or whatever, and then how things kind of turned to where the group went to go find this dude, who did kind of do Sakuragi dirty, but it was interesting to see how the author kind of started to shift the narrative and the perspective of the character, to where it's like, yes, this guy was a dirtbag, and Sakuragi went to prison for somebody who really doesn't care about him and stuff, but this guy, over the course of this decade plus time, kind of coming to his senses and literally getting some sense beaten to him, and being put in a situation to where he is set up for redemption, to where even in the end, which I'm still kind of salty about that world championship fight between him and Mario, and him winning, and then him taking the championship belt to Anchan's grave, and his mother happened to be there, and then him finally giving the money from 12 years ago to Sakuragi's mother plus interest and stuff, whatever. Well, it's kind of like a nice way for things to kind of wrap up, but yeah, just like I said, just like all throughout, just like so many just moments, like the story arc with Joe and his sister Meg, and like what they went through with both the head lady at the orphanage and then the adoptive father dude that they had to deal with or whatever, with Meg, and going to court and all this stuff. And even Meg and the army dude getting married, and Matsura becoming a wrestler and stuff, whatever, a pro wrestler, was super dope. And Baramoto getting into law and stuff, whatever, and of course Joe also followed his own dream of becoming a singer, and then Maida becoming a big money man and stuff. Like it was just like so dope, just seeing these story arcs and stuff over the course, like sort of this decade of time, and the hardships and stuff that everybody had to go through on this journey. But yeah, it was truly fantastic. It was truly phenomenal. And like I said, I was kind of a little bit iffy of how they introduced that dude at the end. But like I said, I feel like all in all, it's still kind of wrapped up pretty cleanly. And even like the lady that became a bartender or whatever, and the other girl who had fell in love with Mario during that one arc and stuff, like there was so much stuff that happened over the course of this series that I of course can't do this stuff true justice trying to recap everything, but it was a wonderful journey. And I just love these shots of just like every time it was all right, somebody's in trouble, hey, we first roll out, we first take care of business. Just so good, man. Just so good. But yeah, check out Rainbow. Like I said, where you can, in the places you can, on the dark web. Uh, but yeah, this was a fantastic series. And I love how the final chapter is just titled "Catch the Rainbow," and it is Mario at this crossroads, as he's just traveling to figure out where he wants to go to next. And yeah, and I just like to just love we get these final shots of, where am I going? I haven't decided yet, but I'm not worried. Right, you guys, we can go wherever we want. Um, and yeah, that's it. That is our fantastic ending to Rainbow, the 7 from Block 2, Cell 6. What a journey. And like I said, I look forward to whatever series I decide to dive into next. But yeah, that's it. So thank you so much for watching and or listening. As always, you can find me everywhere at Dad Needs to Talk, where I do discussions, interviews, and reviews surrounding the topics of fatherhood and family, manga, anime, movies, TV shows, and of course, video games. And as I always say, treat yourself to something nice, read some manga, watch some anime, TV, and movies, play some video games, and live your best life. And with that, I am out. Thank y'all so much for all the love, kindness, and support. And I will catch y'all in the next one. Y'all be easy.